And now it's time for the Michelle Dawn Mooney Show.
I'm really excited to bring my next guest on. If you've ever struggled with sleep, I think we can see a show of hands of everyone out there. This is the guest for you. Dr. Chris Winter is a sleep specialist. He is an author of several books, The Sleep Solution, Why Your Sleep is Broken and How to Fix It. Also, The Rested Child, Why Your Tired, Wired, or Irritable Child May Have a Sleep Disorder and How to Help. He is also a podcast host, Sleep Unplugged with Dr. Chris Winter. And he also does a sleep.com series called Sleeping Around with Dr. Chris Winter. So without further ado, let's bring on Dr. Chris Winter. Welcome.
Everybody, sit down, please.
We're going
down.
great.
That's too kind.
Here's the deal. Can I call you Chris?
Please do.
Okay. So, Chris, sleep affects all of us, as you clearly know, because this is the field that you are working in. I mean, you've been a neurologist since 2004, working in the Virginia area, but nationally, you've been on so many TV shows. We talked about the books. I really can't wait to talk about a specific side that you've really taken that is so interesting with the sports world. But let me ask you this. We all know that sleep is such a crucial part of our lives, everything that we do. What was it about sleep that really kind of got you thinking that I want to study this and I want to help people to get better sleep?
I would say it's sort of a combination of a fantastic mentor when I was in college. I felt it was probably a good idea to do some, research or work with doctors if that's something that I was interested in doing. I didn't, I wanted to be a doctor, but I think a lot of people who decide to be doctors or go into medicine don't really know what that means. So I worked with this fantastic doctor named Paul Surratt at the University of Virginia. And, it was his mentorship. It was his ability to make the science of sleep really exciting. But I also really like the novelty and the newness of the field. Like you felt like you were getting in at the beginning of something where, cardiology is great and studying the spleen and the pancreas are fantastic, but there's a lot that's already known about them. So the whole idea of being in a field that was relatively new and also touched the lives of so many people. I mean, everybody's got a sleep story to tell. If you introduce yourself as a sleep doc on an airplane or a dinner party, there's all kinds of conversations that come from it. And so I just like that. The applicability, it was new and shiny. And it was something that we, as I went through neurology, there's a lot of neurology that's to some degree depressing. We can diagnose certain disorders, but maybe something like ALS or a brain tumor, we don't really have great treatments for. But sleep's something that we can really help people achieve better sleep or fix the problems they have with their sleep. So I like that practicality of it too, that I could actually make a difference rather than, and not that people who are dealing with ALS are not making a difference. I think there's a real gift to being able to shepherd somebody through a very difficult situation and provide comfort and knowledge to people, even if there's not a lot that can be done. But, I like fixing things and making things better. So this really appealed to me.
Yeah, and there's that immediacy of getting that wonderful feedback of, what, doctor, I tried this and it worked. I mean, that's got to be such a great feeling. So let me ask you from a personal note, and I'm hoping this isn't getting too personal, but how is your sleep? I mean, do you get a good night's sleep? Because not saying this has anything to do with you being a good doctor or a bad doctor, but I mean, a lot of times it's just contingent on how our bodies are wired. And, sometimes we have people that are officials in some subject and they're very good at helping other people, but do you have?
No, I'm a great sleeper.
Okay. See?
And that is the joke in medicine, that doctors go into the field that they have problems with, and I used to tell that to my kids, and I'll never forget, I said that all the time, if you're a little, anxious or depressed or neurotic, you go into psychiatry and blah, blah, blah. And I'll never forget one time my son said he realized that there was a male obstetrician. And I remember at dinner, he said, "Dad, can I ask you a question?" I was like, "Sure." He said, "Why do you think he went into OB/GYN?" thought that was a great. I can't really answer that question because that is a field I ruled out immediately in medical school. But anyway, so yeah, no, I'm a really, really excellent sleeper. I can sleep just about anywhere. And like I tell people, the secret to great sleep is being equally happy in bed awake as you are asleep. So I like being in bed awake. If I get in bed, it takes me 2 hours to fall asleep. I got plenty of things to think about and muse upon. So I like that situation. When you fear it, dread it, it can become a problem very quickly. So no, I'm a pretty good sleeper.
So let me ask you this. What are some of the main kind of nuts and bolts questions and things that you tackle? I mean, serving in this capacity for so many years, what are the main ones that you hear? What are the biggest issues that we're having as a society when it comes to sleep?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest things that we talk about, you could sort of divide into two categories. And it's interesting as somebody who's been in the media as long as you have, there's the group of individuals who can't sleep, even though that's not a real thing. So if you're watching this and you're somebody who says, well, I can't sleep without this pill or I can't sleep without that noise machine, that's never a true statement. Everybody has to sleep. It's physiologically impossible not to, but that's one group. The other group are the individuals who are excessively sleepy. They're people who go to church and immediately fall asleep before the pastor ever steps up to the pulpit. There are people who fall asleep at stoplights. As soon as they put the ball game on, they're asleep on the couch. So there's sort of the I can't sleep and then the I can't do anything but sleep. And that really sort of creates this division of insomnia and sleep deprivation. And we pay a lot of attention to insomnia in the media. I mean, it is a 5 alarm fire. Tips for sleeping. Here's 10 surprising things that can make you fall asleep fast. And here's a breathing method. Here's a thing you put on your wrist and it vibrates and makes you fall asleep. So we're really focused on the population of people who get in bed and struggle to fall asleep. And they're a need. They have a need. But the people that we should be paying the most attention to are the people, who go to sleep right away. I'm asleep before my head hits the pillow. I can sleep on a pile of gravel, as one person told me. They're generally the individuals who have much more of a problem with, something like sleep deprivation and all the things that you hear about, heart disease, dementia, name a disorder, it's probably related to lack of sleep. They're the ones who are at risk for that. But it's almost like the insomnia patients who, quote unquote, can't sleep here. If you're not getting enough sleep, you get heart disease and Alzheimer's disease and all these terrible things, which makes their problem even worse. Now they go to bed thinking, if I don't fall asleep in the next 10 minutes, I'm putting myself at risk for heart disease. And so there's a lot of weird kind of cross signals when it comes to sleep. But by and large, those are the two main populations that we're typically dealing with.
So, how do we deal with the people who aren't getting a good night's sleep? Because there are a lot of factors. I mean, in situational. So, if you are a new parent and you have a child who's keeping you up, I mean, clearly there are things that are always going to affect our lives. But overall, what really is causing that? What can we be doing differently to
Sure.
help avoid those sleepless nights?
Yeah. And again, avoid the sleepless night. If you're asking me how many patients come to our clinic who have sleepless nights, it's very few, if any. But the number of people who come saying that they can't sleep or they're having night after night of sleepless nights is very high. And that gets into an idea of our perception of sleep is often very different from our reality. So the individual who comes to me who says, I'm lucky if I get an hour of sleep, and that's been going on for 6 years, is not just sleeping an hour at night. That's physiologically impossible, even though that might be what he or she perceives. So the answer to your question really starts with how do we define a good night's sleep? Because if we get 100 people and ask them, did you sleep well or not? The people who sleep well or the sleep poorly, they're going to generally define their sleep as being good or bad based upon two metrics. Number one, how long it took them to fall asleep. Number two, how many times they woke up during the night. I think those are two absolutely terrible metrics for sleep. It's kind of like trying to get a sense of a population and how nutritious they are. Are they eating well? And instead of asking them what they eat, how they feel, how they perform, you ask them, how long does it take you to eat your dinner? And how many times while you eat dinner do you stop to talk to somebody? Like, That would make absolutely no sense. Well, I eat my dinner very quickly. I usually have my dinner eaten in under 3.5 minutes, and I do not stop once I start eating to do anything until I'm done eating my food. Well, great, but I don't even know what that means. It's kind of concerning to me that you would eat that quickly. So when you talk to individuals about quality sleep, are you a good or bad sleeper? We have to define it properly, because if they're defining it based upon the fact that they're upset because it takes them 35 minutes to fall asleep every night and their partner falls asleep immediately, I'm actually more concerned about the partner than I am the individual falling asleep in 35 minutes. But there's nothing in the media that would make that person feel good about the fact that it takes them 35 minutes to fall asleep. In fact, everything is, well, you should do a 4-7-8 breathing technique, or do this thing that the SEALs do, or buy this device that falling asleep fast is meaningless. And so we really have a lot of educational work to do when it comes to sleep in people, because it's all about fast, and that's not a great source of quality sleep. It's really, how do you feel at 3 o'clock in the afternoon? Oh, I've
Yeah,
got great energy, and even if I lay down to take a nap, I couldn't fall asleep. Well, then you must be doing something right.
everything you're saying, I'm actually a little mind boggled because I'm in that group of, well, I keep waking up or it takes me a long time to
Mhm.
go to sleep. So, what should we be basing a quote unquote good night's sleep on? What are some of the factors to look out for?
Yeah, I mean, if somebody said, look, you've got 20 seconds to assess somebody's sleep, what I would say is, I'm going to give you some situations, and I want you to tell me how likely it would be for you to fall asleep in that situation. If you were talking to a friend on the phone, if you were watching Jeopardy at 7:30 in the evening, sitting quietly on your couch, what if you were in a college lecture, that was an hour long about something that you really enjoyed, or watching your kids' travel soccer game? If somebody's saying, I would never fall asleep in any of those situations, my guess is that the quality and the quantity of sleep that you're getting is probably pretty good. Because if it weren't, you would. It's sort of like seeing somebody eating food out of a trash can. I can make some assumptions about that person. They're not eating enough. They're not accessing quality food. And so their drive to eat is so high that they're doing this thing that's almost unspeakable. So when an individual is not getting enough sleep, quality or quantity, it's going to find it somewhere. I had a taxi driver when the last time I was in New York fell asleep at a stoplight.
Oh, jeez.
And light turned green. We were just sitting there, and I'd like poke him through the little hole in the little plexiglass thing, and he's like, "Oh, I'm sorry about that." So
Did
we
you
had a
tell them to?
discussion. We had a discussion about that
I was
as we
going
went
to say,
down
you
Fifth
have to
Fifth
tell them who
Avenue.
you are.
Yeah. So that individual, if he's looking around at everything in the media that says how long it takes you to fall asleep, here's some techniques for falling asleep, he's going to be thinking, "Oh, I'm great, because I can literally fall asleep at a stoplight." Right. But that's the problem. So to me, the best metric of, quickly assessing your sleep is, how sleepy are you during the day? Do you nap? If somebody says, I can't nap, well, it's kind of like, I can't snack. That person eating food out of a trash can, when you ask him, hey, you want a snack? You want an apple and some, a fresh sandwich? He's going to eat it, because he's hungry. He's got a drive for it. So this all sort of boils down to the idea that food, water, air, and sleep are non-negotiables. If you're human and watching this show, you sleep.
Yeah.
So now, do you sleep well? And, so if somebody says, look, I wake up 20 times during the night and I'm exhausted the next day, that's something to pay attention to. But the average human probably wakes up 15 times an hour, is not aware of it. So waking up, going to the bathroom, getting back in bed, and going back to sleep, as long as you feel good during the day, it's probably okay.
I have to ask you this because you brought up naps. To me, that's a burning question. Yay or nay? Does it depend on the person? Does it depend on their lifestyle? Does it screw us up? I mean, I've become a napper here and there occasionally, and of course, do you even have the opportunity? That's another thing. But what's your take on that?
I think napping is fine. It's a wonderful way to sort of make up for lost sleep. So when somebody says, I nap, the question is, why? Is it, well, I was flying in, my flight got delayed. I finally got into LaGuardia at 2 a.m. or whatever, got into bed at 4 and had to be at work at 6. So you got 2 hours of sleep maybe, when you should have gotten more. So something prevented you from getting the sleep that you needed. Well, I would say in the next 5 to 7 days, let's try to make up for that lost sleep. I think if you're able to do that, you can pay off that sleep debt that you incurred and move on with your life without any sort of consequence. That's different from somebody saying, I often go to bed at 10 o'clock. It takes me 4 hours to fall asleep, so I take a 3-hour nap in the afternoon. I think that's prolonging the problem. You've got to kind of adopt more of a Naval Academy lifestyle, which is, I'm going to give my brain 7 hours of sleep. Use it or don't use it, I don't care. But if you choose not to use it, you're not going to get an opportunity to get it during the day. That's how we take a bad night of sleep, like after a Super Bowl, and compound it. I mean, when I talk to patients who struggle with their sleep and you ask them how long has this been going on, oh, it's been going on 7 years since the divorce. So the divorce was 7 years ago. That started a process that they created, and that's fine. Everybody has difficulty sleeping from time to time. But the choices we make when we have these difficult nights can decide whether that's an isolated difficult night and you go right back to sleeping okay, or 7 years later, you're taking a bunch of sleeping pills and really can't get a hold on getting your sleep. So sleeping or napping is for people who are good sleepers at night that need a little bit more sleep during the day. It's not for people who have adequate opportunity at night. They're just not making use of it. I mean, it's like a kid who doesn't eat his dinner. Like, he doesn't want his dinner. I don't care if you eat your dinner, but when you don't eat your dinner, I'm not going to give you some sort of snack at other times because you'll never eat your dinner at that point.
Yeah. You mentioned a night after the Super Bowl, so I have to bring this up because I think this is just fascinating. You have really focused a lot of your attention with your career in helping athletic teams, the Los Angeles Dodgers, Boston Red Sox, San Diego Padres, Philadelphia Phillies. I am a Phillies and Eagles fan. You
They
had written
came
an
close.
article.
Both of them came close,
Both
didn't they?
both of them, good showing.
Yeah, yeah.
And you had written an article, will the Phillies kind of reign supreme with that? And it really depends on sleep. So let's talk about that. And I didn't even get to the MLB teams and the Chicago Bulls and the Pacers and the Wizards, WNBA, NHL. You have really found such a niche with a field that it's all important for us to get a good night's sleep. But when you talk about performance, when you're really,
Sure.
under the wire of time and making sure your body has that peak performance at a perfect time. So let's use that to talk about just how crucial sleep is to our everyday lives. Because a lot of people are like, oh, I'm good. 2 hours is, I don't need it. I don't need it. How much does it impair our function when we're not getting a good night's sleep?
It impairs our function tremendously. And it can be something that, I mean, it's hard to, if you reduce my ability to be a sleep specialist by 15%, I don't know that I would notice that. Like, nobody's sitting there with a stopwatch or a tape measure looking at my performance. They might say, wow, your average patient duration was, 15.3 minutes, but since you've been sleeping poorly, it's 17. Like, you're inefficient with your speaking, you're repeating yourself. Maybe I'm doing that. I don't know. But the great thing about athletics, I'm not a huge sports fan. I like athletics fine, but it's not something that I really get that fired up about. I used to when I was a kid, but as I've gotten older. But what I do love about it, it's a great lab because they do know when their performance drops by 7% or is raised by 7%. We were looking at, I was talking to an NBA team and I said, just having your players rest longer would probably increase their free throw percentage and 3-point percentage by like 9%. So once you go back and look at the last 10 games that you've lost and give yourself 9% more 3-pointers and 9% more free throws, not even field goals, and see if that changes the outcome of the game. And so these are organizations that A, care about performance, and B, have invested a ton of money in an individual, meticulously following their health, following their training, following their rehabilitation. So to allow that player to simply walk out of the training center at 5 p.m. and come back the next day at 8 a.m. and do nothing to support their recovery and sleep doesn't really make a lot of sense. It's sort of like, well, we don't really care about hydration here in my sports team. Well, of course you do, because hydration, food, training, mindfulness, sleep, these are the variables that you can actually control. My dad was a football player and a football coach, and he said, you can't coach big, meaning that I can't make you a bigger person or taller or whatever. Maybe you can beef you up a little bit, but we've got to focus on variables that we can control. And up until relatively recently, sleep was just sort of, hey, you're kind of on your own. So giving these players an output for, maximizing their sleep is fantastic. And then, one of the reasons I really got into sleep and athletics was because nobody gives a damn what I have to say about sleep. I mean, I'm Chris Winter, a 5'8.5" sleep doctor from rural Virginia. whatever. There's no kid with my poster on their wall. But if I can get, Tom Brady or LeBron James to, talk about sleep because they believe in it. And one time Tom Brady tweeted about me. He said, "Oh, I just listened to, we just had Chris on our podcast, and it's sleep so important." And my son, who was actually at the Naval Academy at that time, called me at 3 a.m. in the morning and said, "You've got to look and see what." But that's the thing, is that now if Tom Brady talks about sleep, you can get any young, boy or girl who's interested in athletics and making the team at their high school interested in sleep very fast. It's my sock theory. If you'd given me socks when I was a kid for Christmas, I would have punched you in the face. But now that's what my kids want. Like, oh, I want Kevin Durant socks. I'm like, really? You want $50 socks just because they have the letters KD on? I mean, if they can make socks cool, they can definitely make sleep cool.
Yeah. There you go. I love what you talked about your dad and controlling the things you can control, the variables there. So what can we control? Your best tips for what we all can do to hopefully have a better night's sleep.
Yeah, I think we can control our schedule. And now, obviously, if somebody says, "Look, I work 7A to 7P for 7 days and I switch over and do 7P to 7A," that's tough. There's rapidly backwards and forwards, night shift nurse working or working at the power plant or whatever. That can be hard. So, talking to your boss and maybe saying, "Look, instead of switching shifts every 7 days, can we stay on that night shift longer to create more consistency?" So schedule consistency is something we can do. I think, we talk a lot about sleep hygiene. I don't really, I care about sleep hygiene, but nobody out there is, stunned when I tell them, a dark, cool, quiet room is a whole lot better than a brightly lit, loud, hot room to sleep in. Nobody's baffled by, really? I've been doing it all wrong. We keep all the lights on, turning it off. Really? This is great. So, I think sleep, everybody knows that this is how you set up a decent bedroom. But I think that really focusing on, trying to create a positive sleep environment, a place that you look forward to going to. I'm a big proponent of making your bed every day, keeping your room neat, let the laundry and the bills accumulate somewhere else. I think that technology is a massive obstacle to our sleep. The number of people who've got laptops, iPads, phones in their bedroom with them, can't sleep. So they pull the phone over and start scrolling through their TikToks and things like that. I'm not against technology. I use a ton of it, but I just think that it needs to sleep out in the kitchen somewhere and really, get back to reading real books and meditative activities and things of that nature. Learning about sleep, I think, is profoundly effective. There's so many, one of the cool things about sleep is that it's this fantastic intersection between real science and mythology. I did a podcast on sleep paralysis. And, all these cultures used to think demons would come visit you and sit on your chest. And we still have patients who come in who, their grandparents told them that the witch rides you at night, which is why you sometimes wake up and can't move. And if you keep a knife and a fork and a spoon under your pillow, it'll keep the witch away. Like, I love stuff like that. But I think getting real good education and not just stuff you kind of pick up here and there from various sources can be extremely empowering. There's a number of people who I tell, look, it's impossible for you really not to sleep less than about 6 hours every 24 you're alive. That alone can be very helpful. And I'm a big supporter of sleep tech. I love wearing little things like this. And so it's great. If you truly think you're only sleeping an hour at night, buy some little device, a Withings device, Fitbit, or Ring, whatever you like. And then when you wake up, you write on a piece of paper how much you slept. Okay, I slept 1 hour. It was a terrible night. And then look what the Oura Ring or the Fitbit says. I bet it's a much more than that. And if you don't believe it, ask your partner. Like, I think I slept an hour last night, even though I was in bed for 9. So what, you were awake for 8 hours just staring at a ceiling? Come on. Ask the partner, what do you think happened? Like, I don't know, honey. Every time I woke up to go to the bathroom, you were asleep. Mm-hmm. So sometimes getting the fear out of the equation is everything. You can tell a kid, look, there is no scary monster under your bed. But until they believe it, your words are just words. They're like, yeah, Dad, but every time you come in to check on the monster, it disappears because it can do that. Like, all right, well, I can't really argue with you there, but at some point you're going to mature enough to know that there is no monster under your bed. And the fear that you have of that thing is just a misplaced fear. And for a lot of people, sleep really degrades into this kind of very fearful situation. And then the best tip is probably, if you're really struggling with your sleep and you've read the books and did all the things, is talk to a certified sleep specialist near you and get some real help. It's sort of like, your knee hurts when you run. Well, you can ice it. You can get a little copper thing, supportive brace from your local pharmacy. You can take some ibuprofen, whatever. At some point, you're going to say, wow, I'm having so much pain in my knee. I got to see somebody about this. And you're going to go see a knee doctor. There are sleep doctors. Believe it or not, most people don't. I'm a real MD, and there's real MDs out there that can help you with your sleep. So just find one that you click with and get to work on finding a real solution rather than just a pill or some sort of, tech that's not really going to help you that much.
Great advice. Where can they find out more information from you, Dr. Chris Winter?
Yeah, so my podcast is Sleep Unplugged. It's free. You can find it anywhere you listen to podcasts, and we really love our Sleep Unplugged family that we've developed. It's gotten popular very fast, but I think that has less to do with my ramblings and more to do with the subject matter. I'm at Dr. Chris Winter on Twitter and Instagram. I do have a TikTok page, but the only thing there that anybody finds helpful is I was one time recording a commercial and the power went out here in Virginia. And so I kind of lost it because we were losing power so frequently. It was just driving me crazy. And my daughter convinced me to post it on there. So that's by far and away the most popular video on the TikTok. You're not going to get a whole lot there. My books are called The Sleep Solution, Why Your Sleep's Broken and How to Fix It, and The Rested Child. That's really more for parents who have kids anywhere from, young kids all the way up to when they head off to college, just understanding their sleep more, because there's so many misdiagnosed kids out there who've got sleep disorders that are being told they're depressed, anxious, have attention problems, and they really don't. It's a sleep problem. So that's really more for them. But that's probably enough.
Everybody's already flocking to the TikTok site or TikTok because they want to see. I want to see it. I'm already going to tell you as soon as we get off this, we're going to TikTok.
It was great. I told my daughter, I was like, I'll post it, but you've got to bleep out the expletives because you'll see it when you get on there. It's pretty funny. It makes me laugh for sure.
Dr. Chris Winter, and some great advice. He ran down just a fraction of what he's been busy with. The Sleep Solution, Why Your Sleep is Broken, How to Fix It. The Rested Child, Why Your Tired, Wired, or Irritable Child May Have a Sleep Disorder and How to Help. And then he talked about the podcast Sleep Unplugged with Dr. Chris Winter. Also, the Sleep.com series Sleeping Around. And we talked about the wealth.
That's a lot of fun too.
Yeah.
I got to sleep on the side of a mountain with a mountain climber named Sasha to Julian. So that's definitely worth checking out. That was big fun.
Well, I love that when you hear sleeping around, you're like, I don't know what that's going to be about, but literal of you are literally sleeping around, and giving advice and talking.
People sleep in weird places with their jobs, and so there's lots to learn there. So yeah.
It's like dirty jobs with
that's right. Right? That's right. Except we just sleep. I sleep in the sewer instead of working in the sewer, I guess.
I pick yours instead of dirty jobs, definitely, all the way. Dr. Chris Winter, thank you so much for this great advice. I really appreciate it. I talked to you about my husband earlier because you said everybody gives you their personal stories, so I can see that because I was one of them. So I know you get a lot of personal stories, and you're so gracious with listening to everybody's probably questions and
sure,
whatever's bugging them and bothering them. But I'm excited, and I was taking mental notes. I'm going to go back and jot a few of these things down because I know it works because you actually are the doctor, so you should know. So thank you for your time.
Anytime. Yeah, we'll do the call-in show next time.
Yeah, there you go. That sounds great.
Want more MDM content? For more fun and exciting interviews, visit MichelleDawnMooney.com. Thanks for watching. We'll see you soon.